This right here is an example of one of my character designs. My main professional experience is as a concept artist in the video game industry. And you might think that that means it's my job to draw cool stuff all day. Well, in reality, what it means is I need to solve visual problems. Somebody comes up to me and gives me a verbal description of something. So in this case, they would tell me, we need a communications droid, and we need him to do these tasks. And they'd tell me from a gameplay standpoint what this character needs to do. So this does not mean it's my opportunity now to draw the biggest, baddest robot ever. Instead, what I have to do is think about what this robot needs to say. What's his major emphasis? And then back that up with visuals. So a lot of times I like to just start with adjectives. We could say this communication droid is going to be smart, maybe inquisitive, high-tech, and has to do with communications. Because remember, I'm going to be making a series of choices. I get to start with a total blank canvas for this character, and I need to come up with something that is as clear and obvious as possible. So once I have these basic words to begin with, I can begin to gather reference that will help me get the visual wheels moving. So in the last video, we talked about icons. And you probably remember that spiky means dangerous. Well, my character is not supposed to be dangerous. In fact, this character might not even fight at all in the game. Maybe his whole job is to run around and collect information. So with that in mind, I'm going to gather reference that is far from spiky. I'm going to gather reference that is smooth and streamlined. So here's a big sheet of the various photos that I gathered. And you can see that it is a wide variety of things. Yes, I'm designing a robot, but they're not all pictures of robots. In fact, I think the best designs come from a wide variety of reference. So let's look at the commonalities in the things I picked. There are some animals that we think of as smart. Dolphins, for instance, are just really, really smart animals. There's also animals that are very rounded and soft and curvilinear, because these are aspects that say inquisitive and smart. I also picked animals that have really pronounced eyes, because large eyes usually say something about information gathering. They are good observers. I also got some modern interpretations of cute robots. And I did not do this because I want to copy them directly, but more because they'll add a certain sense of realism when it comes to drawing the joints and the connections. I've also got a picture of a helicopter, a submarine, an underwater fish, and some communications relays. These are all aspects that I want to infuse into my character. Before we get any further on this guy, I want to talk about how to use reference material. So for that, here are some crocodiles and alligators. If I wanted to start getting to know what these animals look like, I could do a simple reference sketch. And this is where I'm going to draw as realistically as I can and capture all the details, all the little shapes. This is a great way to learn about an object. But it's not necessarily what you want to do when you're designing. This could be a great first step, but it's not going to be your final step. So if I wanted to draw a crocodile from my imagination, I could try holding some references here on one monitor and then drawing a totally new pose from scratch. Because that's a great way of testing if you can internalize these shapes and then redraw them from your own imagination. So here's one interpretation. I've added in a slight amount of style, so I'm not sticking with the strictly realistic interpretation. You can see I've emphasized the spines on his tail a bit, and I've also made his mouth a little bit tougher looking with some bigger teeth. But another direction I could have taken this would be to make a very cartooned alligator. So here I've really simplified it. I've taken out all kind of extraneous details and I've pared him down to his core aspects. This is more of an icon. So for instance, I've left in the spikes on his tail, I've left in the teeth, but the rest of the body is very simplified. The point here is that reference is not meant to be copied. Reference is a great way for you to learn details about a subject that you're not familiar with, but ultimately you are still drawing something from your imagination. That's design. And then if you're drawing from your imagination, the difference between a semi-realistic character and a cartoon character is all about the choices you make, because you're not tied to simply copying the reference. If all I knew how to do was copy, I could never make a cartoon character, because obviously this doesn't exist in real life. So with this in mind, I'm going to take a look at the reference I gathered from my communications droid. And one thing I like to do if I have the time is to do a bit of warm-up. So a great exercise is to just look at your reference sheet and draw it. So here I am actually copying. I'm just looking at the shapes and trying to reproduce them. And this is a great way to just internalize your reference material. So that step is non-essential, but if you've got the luxury of a little extra time, it's pretty useful. All right, now it's time to actually begin designing the robot. So as you saw in the previous videos, shape, or specifically silhouette, is a great place to begin. This is going to help you get that initial read powerfully. So I'm going to start drawing a sheet of possible silhouettes. And this is good for a couple reasons. First, it helps me get a lot of different ideas out quickly. Just like drawing thumbnails before you start any illustration, this is going to be the most efficient use of your time. Because once you get a sheet of these, you'll be able to pretty safely pick a few and proceed with those onto the following steps. But as I made these robot shapes, I was considering everything I learned from my reference material. I'm infusing some of that owl and some of that frog. I'm putting them all into a robot shape. So I'm no longer just drawing an owl, but I'm looking at it for inspiration. I'm using its visual language to help inform these shapes that I'm drawing. So we'll finish up this design as the series progresses, but for now, I want you to think about the alligator. When I looked at the reference, I was able to interpret that through the lens of design and come up with two dramatically different results. This is a great exercise. So I'm going to give you a homework assignment called Good Guy, Bad Guy. So you're going to take an animal or a bug, some real world creature, and stylize that one creature in two totally different directions. You're going to have a good guy version and a bad guy version. And the way you do this is going to be to use shape language and icons to emphasize different forms. So remember hard versus soft, spiky versus smooth. All these different silhouette type shapes are really going to help you say good guy or bad guy.